My husband slid 16 pages across our kitchen table and said, "Sign it." His mother sat 3 feet away, eating the pumpkin bread I had baked that morning. I looked at the first page. A post-nuptial agreement. Lucas folded his arms. "I built Reed Renovation, Claire, not you." His mother nodded as if he had just said something reasonable. I read every page. Then I signed my name. Lucas smiled like he had finally protected his future from me. There was only one problem. For 5 years, my husband had been making decisions based on a version of me that had never actually existed. And 48 hours earlier, I had found out exactly what he planned to do once my signature was on that page. So I gave him what he wanted. Then I stopped helping. Lucas would spend the next year learning how much of his self-made life had quietly been held together by the wife he thought was standing in the background. My name is Claire Bennett, and this is the story of how I stopped asking my husband to respect me and finally gave him the chance to live without everything I had been doing for him. It began on the Sunday before Thanksgiving. Cold rain had been falling over Cary, North Carolina since before sunrise. Not dramatic rain, just miserable November rain. The kind that turned the backyard gray and made the kitchen windows fog around the edges. I had been awake since 6. Coffee was brewing. A loaf of pumpkin bread was cooling beside the stove. Our dog Penny was lying under the breakfast table because she had correctly calculated that food occasionally fell from that location. Lucas came downstairs around 8:30. Gray sweatpants, navy quarter zip, phone already in his hand. By then his phone was almost always the first thing he touched in the morning and the last thing he looked at night. He walked behind me and kissed somewhere near my cheek. Not really on it, near it. That is something nobody tells you about unhappy marriages. Affection does not always disappear. Sometimes it becomes approximate. A hand near your shoulder, a kiss near your face, a love you spoken, while the person is already walking into another room. You can live inside approximate love for a surprisingly long time if you are committed to calling it marriage. I was. Lucas poured coffee. Rain killed the North Hill site again. Did Carlos move the cabinets inside yesterday? He looked at me. How do you know about that? You told me they were arriving Friday. Oh. He checked his phone again. Yeah, they're inside. That was becoming the rhythm of our marriage. Lucas mentioned a problem. I remembered it. Sometimes I solved it. 3 days later, he remembered the solution as something that had simply happened. At 9:15, his mother pulled into the driveway. Denise Reed believed stopping by after church meant arriving without warning and staying until she became hungry enough for lunch. I still loved her then. Or maybe loved the idea that she was family. Those are not always the same thing. She came in carrying only her purse. "Oh, pumpkin bread." She kissed my cheek. "Lucas said you were making some." I hadn't told Lucas I was making it, which meant he had told her to expect food before telling me she was coming. That bothered me more than it should have. I sliced the bread anyway. At 9:38, Lucas disappeared upstairs. He returned holding a navy folder. He placed it beside my coffee. "What's that?" "Just something practical." Denise took another bite. She did not look curious. That was the first thing I noticed. Lucas sat across from me. "Read it." I opened the folder. The title took about 3 seconds to understand. Marital Property Agreement. His full name, my full name. A law office in Raleigh. I looked up. "You've already had this prepared." His mouth tightened. "I've been getting advice." "For how long?" Denise sighed. "Claire, don't turn it into something ugly." I looked at her. She buttered another slice of bread. That was the second thing I noticed. She had already discussed this with him. Lucas leaned back. "Reed Renovation is at a different level now." I waited. "We've got 12 employees. We're doing almost $4 million a year in projects. I have equipment, accounts, the warehouse lease, a reputation." "Okay, I need to protect that." "From what?" He stared at me as if I were deliberately making him say the uncomfortable part. "From uncertainty." Denise touched his arm. "Just say it." So he did. "I built Reed Renovation, Claire, not you." There it was. Perfectly clean. No anger. No yelling. That made it hurt more. I genuinely believed it. I looked down at the agreement again. Denise said a man has a right to protect something he built with his own hands. I almost asked whether the hand currently holding my pumpkin bread counted. Instead, I kept reading. The document was exactly what Lucas wanted it to be. His company remained his. Any increase in company value would primarily remain tied to his ownership and documented contribution. My support was described in one paragraph as incidental spousal assistance. Incidental. I stopped there. Lucas saw me stop. What? Nothing. I turned the page. Our house was addressed. Savings. Vehicles. Retirement accounts. Then my income. Claire Bennett. Operations Coordinator, Bennett Property Services. Annual compensation $57,000. Independent Financial Holdings Presumed Limited. Limited. That word stayed in my head for a moment. Then I moved on. I had learned something important 2 nights earlier. When a person is wrong about you in a way that benefits you, correcting them too quickly can be a mistake. Lucas watched me reach the signature page. If you need time, I don't. Denise frowned. Lucas did too. He had expected resistance, maybe tears, maybe accusations, maybe a speech about marriage and trust. Instead, I picked up the pen, signed, initialed the places he had marked, signed again, then pushed the folder back. Anything else? For several seconds, Lucas said nothing. Then his shoulders loosened. A small exhale. Relief. No. Okay. He closed the folder carefully. Denise looked pleased. See, mature people can handle things without turning them into a disaster. I looked at her. That sentence would mean something very different to me later. Lucas got up. I've got to meet Eric at the shop for an hour. On Sunday. Just checking something. He kissed the side of my head. Again, approximately. 20 minutes later, his truck disappeared down our street. Denise stayed another 45 minutes. She talked about Thanksgiving, Lauren's children, a recipe she had seen online, everything except the document I had just signed. When she finally left, I stood alone in the kitchen. The knife she had used was beside the half-finished loaf. Her coffee cup had a faint lipstick mark. The post-nup was gone. My marriage looked exactly the same as it had 90 minutes earlier. The same photographs, the same couch, Penny asleep under the table, the same framed wedding picture in the hallway. But I knew something Lucas did not. The woman who had signed that agreement was already gone. 2 nights earlier, I had opened our shared laptop because I needed the renewal information for our homeowner's insurance. That was all. There was no suspicion, no plan to snoop, no dramatic intuition. Our policy renewal was due before December. Lucas kept household documents in a folder on the old MacBook we both used. I sat at the kitchen table around 10:30 Friday night in flannel pajamas with the dishwasher running behind me. Lucas was upstairs showering. I opened the household folder. Then I clicked the wrong one. Personal. I had seen it before. I had never opened it. I believed married people were still allowed privacy. I still believe that, but privacy and secrecy are not the same thing. Privacy protects personal space. Secrecy requires someone else to remain uninformed for your plan to work. Inside that folder were 11 files, receipts, travel bookings, a few scanned documents, then one Word document. Exit timeline. Modified 6 days earlier. I opened it. It was not long. That made it worse. Lucas had organized the end of our marriage into bullet points. November finalized marital agreement. December move remaining supplier relationships away from Bennett dependency. January refinance equipment line. February shift personal savings. March separate residence. April file. I read those 6 lines 3 times. Below them, Claire has no documented ownership or role in Reed. Family support mostly informal. Company growth attributable to founder. Keep things calm until agreement is signed. Then the last line. P wants clarity before spring. P. I stared at the letter. Behind me, the dishwasher clicked into the drying cycle. Upstairs, the shower shut off. My entire marriage changed while the kitchen clock still read 10:43. I searched the laptop. I wish I could tell you I hesitated. I didn't. Not after the timeline. The browser had saved access to a photo account I had never seen. There were pictures, not explicit ones, ordinary ones. Those were worse. Lucas holding 2 coffees on a hotel balcony. Lucas across a restaurant table. Lucas in Boone beside a blonde woman wearing a red scarf. Lucas standing in the kitchen of a mountain cabin wearing the green flannel shirt I had bought him the previous Christmas. That shirt hurt. Not because it was expensive, because I had spent 20 minutes deciding between green and navy while thinking about what would look good on my husband. There is something humiliating about realizing an object you chose with love has been carried into another woman's memory. I recognized her. Paige Collins, 20, digital marketing manager at Reed Renovation. She had sat beside me at the company Christmas party. She had complimented my earrings. She had hugged me goodbye. Under one photo, Lucas had written, "Soon." Paige had replied, "I hope so." I closed the laptop. I did not go upstairs. I did not throw anything. I did not confront him. I sat there, 10 minutes, maybe 12, and thought about something my father once told me when I was 16. I had backed his truck into the brick column beside our driveway, destroyed a taillight, cracked the column. I expected him to explode. Instead, he looked at the truck, looked at me, and said, "We'll talk after dinner." Years later, I asked why. I said, "Anger is information, Claire. It tells you something matters. It doesn't tell you what to do next." So Friday night, I let my anger tell me something mattered, and I refused to let it choose my next move. Lucas came downstairs 20 minutes later. He opened the refrigerator. "Want anything?" "No." "You okay?" "Tired." "Lung weak." "Yeah." He grabbed sparkling water. Then he kissed the top of my head. I remember thinking, how many times can a person lie before the lie stops changing their pulse? I went upstairs. I stayed at the table. The next morning, he made pancakes. That almost broke me. There he was flipping pancakes like a husband, complaining about lumber prices, telling me Carlos was behind on trim work, telling me Paige wanted more budget for video ads. He said her name without blinking. I watched him put blueberries on my plate. That was when I understood something. The man I wanted to confront did not exist. The man I had married was either gone or had never been quite who I thought he was. Either way, yelling at him would not bring him back. On Sunday, he handed me the agreement. I signed it, and Lucas smiled. He had no idea how much I knew. But if you want to understand why he was so certain I needed him, you have to understand the mistake I made long before the affair. I helped him become successful, then I let him forget. My father, Thomas Bennett, started Bennett Building and Supply in 1994. Not with investors, not with inherited money. One store in Garner, North Carolina. Leaking roof, flood-prone parking lot. One forklift that broke often enough to have its own personality. Dad had worked for a regional lumber company until it was sold. I had a wife, 2 children, a mortgage, and more confidence than evidence. He borrowed against our house. Mom ran the register. My brother Nathan was 9 and swept floors on Saturdays. I was 6. My first job was putting price stickers on paintbrushes. I was terrible at it. One brush had 4 stickers. Dad kept it for years. The business grew slowly, painfully, then steadily. Contractors learned Dad did what he said. If materials were promised Tuesday, they came Tuesday. If he made a mistake, he admitted it before the customer found it. Dad had one sentence he repeated until Nathan and I were sick of hearing it. People remember whether your word was expensive, meaning if your word became worthless, rebuilding it would cost more than whatever you gained by breaking it. By the time I finished college, Bennett had 3 locations. When Dad started stepping back, Nathan took sales and purchasing. I took operations, staffing, leases, property management, and commercial accounts. Nathan liked shaking hands. I liked making sure there was something behind the handshake. It worked. Eventually, we had 4 stores, 3 small warehouses, a property company holding several commercial buildings, and 17 rental properties. Good business. Comfortable family. No jets. No mansions. No billionaire nonsense. My father drove a 9-year-old Ford F-150 and complained every time Mom bought name-brand paper towels. But the companies were valuable, and I owned a meaningful part of them. 40% of Bennett Building and Supply. 30% of the property company. I rarely talked about that. There was a reason. Before Lucas, I had been engaged to a man named Andrew. Andrew was perfectly normal until he learned exactly what my family owned. Then every dinner with Dad became networking. Every contractor became someone Andrew wanted introduced to. Every conversation about expansion became, maybe we could, we, always we. 5 months into our engagement, he asked Dad whether there might be a place for him in the company after the wedding. He had never asked me whether I wanted him there. I ended it. Afterward, I became careful, not dishonest, careful. If someone asked what I did, I said operations for my family's companies. True. If they assumed Nathan ran most of the visible business, I let them. Also largely true. If they cared enough to ask meaningful questions, I answered. Most people did not. Then I met Lucas Reed in May 2018, a fundraiser for a housing nonprofit in downtown Raleigh. Folding chairs, barbecue, a local band playing too loudly beside a silent auction table. Bennett had donated materials for two affordable homes. Reed Renovation had donated labor for a bathroom remodel. Lucas was 37. I was 33. I had sawdust on one shoe. That was the first thing I noticed. I looked useful, not polished, not ambitious in the way Andrew had been ambitious. Lucas picked up a gift basket containing local coffee. $40 for $12 worth of coffee, he said. Charity is ruthless. I laughed. He looked relieved. I've been trying that joke for 20 minutes. That was your third attempt. Fourth. Then I respect the commitment. We talked almost an hour. Lucas told me he had started his remodeling company after years working for another contractor. I told him I worked in operations with my family's property and building businesses. He asked what I did outside work. Not who Dad knew. Not how large Bennett was. What I liked. I told him I restored old furniture badly. He told me he played guitar badly. We argued over which was the more expensive bad hobby. He asked for my number. I gave it to him. My friend Maya was with me that night. Maya had known me since college and believed friendship gave her permission to be irritatingly observant. After Lucas walked away, she said, he watches the room while he talks to people. What does that mean? It means half of him is always checking who else is there. He runs a business. That is not a personality disorder. Maya. She held up both hands. Go to dinner. Just don't give him a kidney. I went to dinner. Then another. Then another. Lucas was good company. I want to be fair about that. Bad relationships are rarely bad every minute. Lucas remembered details. He fixed a loose drawer in my apartment the first time he came over and never mentioned it. I brought Mom tulips because I had once said she disliked roses. When Dad had knee surgery, Lucas showed up Saturday morning and cut the grass without being asked. May made me laugh. He listened. Or I believed he listened. For a while that distinction didn't matter. Reed Renovation was small then. Lucas. One pickup. One project manager named Carlos. A part-time bookkeeper. Several subcontractors. I was talented. I understood construction. He understood clients. What he did not understand was scale. I underbid jobs. Ordered materials late. Accepted poor payment schedules. Trusted people too quickly. His skill had grown faster than his systems. I helped. Quietly. The first time was a supplier issue. Lucas had been late paying 2 invoices. His commercial credit line was reduced. He complained over dinner. If they cut me now, I'm screwed. I've got 2 jobs starting next month. The next morning, I called Martin Hayes at Bennett. Reed's good for it. Martin trusted me. I extended the line. Lucas came home 2 days later smiling. Bennett finally came to its senses. I smiled. I did not tell him. I thought protecting his confidence was love. Then came Scott and Melissa Harper. They wanted a full kitchen remodel in 5 points. Melissa's sister knew Nathan's wife. I mentioned Lucas. They called. Lucas won the job. The photographs were picked up by a local home magazine. Suddenly, Reed Renovation looked like a company capable of 6-figure projects. Lucas framed the article. He still never knew how the call began. Then a pediatric dentist who knew Dad hired Lucas to renovate 2 offices. A designer friend of mine sent him 3 clients. When Lucas needed warehouse space, Bennett Property Services had a building in Apex sitting half empty. I convinced Nathan to offer a reasonable lease. Nathan asked, "You sure?" "Yes. He's family now." That was my answer. Lucas loved the warehouse. He painted Reed Renovation across one wall, posted photographs, called it our operations center. I loved watching him stand taller. That was the truth. His success made me happy. And every time I helped without saying anything, I taught him the wrong lesson. I began to think doors opened because of him. For a long time, that did not seem dangerous. Then one evening, about a year before our wedding, Lucas said something I should have remembered more clearly. We were driving home from dinner. He had just attended an event with several larger contractors. I said, "One day I want to walk into a room and have people hear Reed Renovation without asking how I'm connected to Bennett." I turned. Do people ask that? Sometimes. You work with Bennett. That isn't the point. What is? His hands tightened on the steering wheel. I want something that's mine. I understood that. Or thought I did. You do. He shook his head. Not if everyone thinks somebody handed it to me. I reached over. Nobody handed you your skill. His face softened. Exactly. I thought I had comforted him. What I had actually seen was the center of Lucas's insecurity. I did not just want success. I wanted success nobody could trace to another person's help, especially mine. Dad noticed before I did. 3 months before our wedding, Lucas had dinner with my family. Afterward, Dad called me. He asked Nathan about our commercial customer list. He's a contractor. I know. He asked me whether we'd ever invest in a construction company. That doesn't mean anything. I didn't say it did. Dad paused. I'm telling you what I noticed. I got defensive. Lucas was not Andrew. I needed Lucas not to be Andrew. The next morning, coffee arrived at my office. My exact order. A note taped to the cup. Can't wait to build a life with you. I kept that note for years. We married the following June at my parents' home outside Apex. 42 people. White chairs. Hydrangea's mom nearly lost her mind over. Nathan's daughters throwing flower petals like tiny agricultural workers. Dad walked me down the aisle. Halfway there, he squeezed my arm. Firm. Brief. I knew what it meant. Are you sure? I kept walking. Lucas was wonderful that day. I danced with Mom. Thanked Dad. Told Nathan he had gained a brother. During his toast, he looked straight at me. I didn't know what home felt like until Claire. I believed him. Maybe he believed himself. I've stopped needing to know. The first 2 years of marriage were mostly good. We bought a 3-bedroom house in Cary. Small backyard. Ugly brick fireplace Lucas promised to redo. He never did. We adopted Penny. Hosted Thanksgiving. Argued over thermostats. Fought about cabinet doors I left open. Lucas snored. I stole blankets. Ordinary marriage. Meanwhile, Reed Renovation grew. 7 employees, then 9, then 12. And growth changed Lucas. Not suddenly. Erosion never looks dramatic day to day. At first, he simply became more interested in status. Who had the bigger firm? Who had the nicer truck? Which neighborhoods mattered? Whose Instagram had more followers? Which business dinner he was invited to? One night he came home from an industry event and said, "People still connect me to Bennett. Because you're married to a Bennett and buy materials from us." Exactly. I looked at him. He laughed. You don't get it. Explain. I don't want people thinking I married my way into a business. That hurt. I've never told anyone that. I know. Then who is saying it? Nobody directly. So this is something you're worried they think. I became irritated. Then you just understand why it matters to me? I did. Too much. Instead of asking why being helped by his wife embarrassed him, I helped him hide it better. That was my part in what happened. The first obvious erasure came at Denise's house. Family dinner. Lauren Lucas's sister had posted a photograph of him beside 3 company trucks. Caption: My brother built this from nothing. Proud of the hardest working man I know. Denise passed the phone around. Look at the comments. Lauren smiled. People love a self-made story. I took a drink of water. Emily, Nathan's wife, was beside me. She knew. The warehouse. The supplier terms. The referrals. The Sunday nights I had checked estimates because Lucas once forgot demolition disposal costs and nearly lost $12,000. Emily said casually. Claire helped a little too. Lauren laughed. Oh, Claire keeps him fed. Everyone laughed. I did too. That is one of the quiet traps in families. Sometimes the person being insulted becomes responsible for keeping the room comfortable. On the drive home, Lucas said, You were quiet. Your sister said I keep you fed. She was joking. I know. So, I looked at him. Do you think that's all I did? I exhaled. Claire, don't turn dinner into an accounting exercise. That's not what I'm doing. Reed Renovation is my company. I know. That doesn't mean I don't appreciate you. Appreciate. Like I had watered his plants. I let it go. The next morning, one of his estimates was wrong. He had underestimated electrical work by almost $9,000. I caught it. I was asleep. I sat at the kitchen table at 1:17 a.m., correcting numbers for a company whose owner had allowed his sister to joke that my main contribution was feeding him. I emailed the corrected estimate. Then I looked at the framed magazine article on the counter. That was the kind of moment I wish I could go back and interrupt. Not because helping your spouse is wrong, because helping while accepting disrespect teaches both people that the arrangement can continue. A year later, Reed Renovation won a regional remodeling award. 300 people at a hotel near downtown Raleigh. Contractors, designers, suppliers, real estate people. Before we left, Lucas looked at my dress. Perfect. What? Nothing. He kissed my shoulder. Simple. I should have asked why simple sounded like relief. At the ceremony, Lucas won. I gave a 4-minute speech. Thanked Carlos. Thanked Paige, who had recently joined as marketing manager. Thanked project managers. Thanked Denise for believing in me before anyone else did. Thanked Lauren for designing his first logo. Thanked clients. Then, Reed Renovation was built by people willing to outwork everyone else. He walked off stage. My name never came. I clapped. Denise leaned over. Sue must be so proud. I am. And I was. That was the humiliating part. You can be proud of someone while they are hurting you. Feelings are inconvenient that way. That night, Lucas was almost euphoric. Driving home, he talked about a second showroom. Charlotte. Bigger commercial projects. Then, you know why we work. I looked at him. You've never needed to be the main person. What? You're comfortable supporting. He smiled like it was a compliment. Some people need the spotlight, you don't. That's a strength. I watched highway lights move over his face. You think I'm a supporting person? Don't make it weird. I asked a question. It's not an insult. I didn't say it was. He squeezed my hand. You know what I mean. That phrase again. You know what I mean. A convenient way to make the person being hurt responsible for translating your cruelty into something kinder. I said nothing. The next week, I still helped him. That is why when people ask why I did not leave earlier, I never pretend I was simply trapped. I was also invested. I had spent years helping build something. I wanted to believe the marriage underneath it was still worth saving. Then came the first money problem. September. Nora Ellis asked me to meet her for coffee. Nora had worked for Bennett for 12 years before I recommended her to Lucas as a part-time bookkeeper. 61. Divorced. Practical. Almost impossible to alarm. She chose a diner in Apex at 7 in the morning. That alone told me something was wrong. She pushed a page across the table. I don't like this. Several invoices. Blue Ridge Brand Partners. Marketing Services. 8,000. 12,000. 9,500. Page handles marketing. I know. Did you ask Lucas? Yes. What did he say? Nora stared into her coffee. He told me to code it and stop asking questions that weren't part of my job. That did not sound like the man who had once thanked Nora for helping him understand payroll taxes. How much? About 180,000 over the past year. For marketing. That's what the invoices say. And you don't believe them. I believe some work happened. She tapped the paper. I don't believe all of it happened. Then she lowered her voice. And he's moving customer deposits around. My stomach tightened. What does that mean? A newer project's deposit covered an older project's cabinet bill. How often? I don't know. Why? Cash flow. That phrase has excused a great many bad decisions. Do you think customers are at risk? I think if new jobs keep coming in, he can keep juggling. And if they don't? Nora didn't answer. She didn't need to. I folded the paper. Keep copies. She looked at me. You knew something was wrong. Not this. Nora sat back. Then said quietly, Claire, I know Reed wouldn't be what it is without you. I almost cried. Not because I needed praise. Because being seen after being erased can feel like someone opening a window. I went home. I did not confront Lucas. That night he complained about Nora. She is getting paranoid. About what? Everything. What did she ask? Accounting stuff. I waited. I looked irritated. Why are we talking about Nora? We aren't. He changed the subject. October passed. Then early November. Lucas became distracted. More phone calls outside. More late meetings. Denise started asking strange questions about whether I was happy with my work. Lauren made another post about Reed becoming one of the Triangle's great homegrown success stories. Then came Friday night. Exit timeline. Page. Sunday morning. The post-nup. I signed. And for the first time in 5 years, I stopped fixing things. At first, nothing happened. That was important. Lucas was talented. Reed Renovation was a real company. I had helped it grow. I had not invented it. So when I stopped stepping in, the company did not collapse. Lucas kept winning projects. In December, he signed a large renovation on a historic home near Oakwood. He came home thrilled. 380,000. That is great. No Bennett referral. I looked at him. Congratulations. He smiled. There was something almost defiant in it. At Christmas, Lauren posted a picture of Lucas raising a glass. Caption: no handouts, no shortcuts, just hard work. Lucas liked it, then commented, only getting started. Maya sent me a screenshot. Her message: I am available to commit crimes. I wrote back, please don't. She replied, coward. I did not respond publicly, but something inside me changed. January brought the first test. A designer named Rachel Monroe had sent Lucas several projects over the years. She called me. Is everything okay at Reed? Why? Lucas isn't returning messages. I don't handle Reed. I know, but you usually. She stopped. Exactly. I've stepped back. A pause. Is everything okay between you two? No, I left it there. Rachel moved 2 projects elsewhere. Lucas noticed. Rachel gave those jobs to Benton. I heard. Did she call you? Yes. His face tightened. What did you say? That I don't handle Reed. That's it. She asked whether I was still comfortable recommending you. And I said no. He stared at me. You sabotaged me. No. She came through us. No, Lucas. I looked at him. She came through me. He laughed. Actually laughed. Claire, please. Something inside me went quiet. Okay. He shook his head. You've been acting strange since Thanksgiving. I've been acting differently. Same thing. No. This is exactly why I wanted the agreement. Maybe it was. He slept in the guest room. The next morning, he acted as if nothing happened. That was another Lucas habit. Conflict ended when he was finished talking about it. A week later, he asked, then you call Nathan? About what? My Bennett account. They changed my terms. Yes. Back to 30 days. Yes. I need 90 through March. Then ask Nathan. Lucas stared at me. Can't you text him? You have his number. A laugh. Then he realized I was serious. What is going on? Nothing. You're not helping. That sentence hung between us. I almost asked him to repeat it. Instead, is that a problem? His eyes narrowed. My business has nothing to do with you. Then you'll figure it out. He walked away angry. A month earlier, those words would have hurt. Now they were useful. In February, Paige called me. Unknown number. I was sitting in the parking lot outside our Garner store. Claire. Yes, this is Paige. I closed my eyes. Okay. We need to talk. No, we don't. Please. Her voice was shaking. That made me stop. We met the following afternoon at a coffee shop in Raleigh. Paige arrived in jeans and a cream sweater. No polished makeup. No company blazer. She looked younger than 30 and frightened. She sat. I didn't know everything. Interesting wording. Not. I didn't know. I didn't know everything. What did you know? She looked down. He told me the marriage was basically over. Basically. He said you lived together because of the house. Did he tell you we slept in the same bedroom? She said nothing. Did he tell you we spent Christmas together? Nothing. Did he tell you I came to the company party where you hugged me? Her eyes filled. I knew it was complicated. No. I said it calmly. You knew the version you wanted to believe was complicated. She looked like I had slapped her. Good. I did not hate Paige, but I was not going to absolve her just because Lucas had lied more. How long? 14 months. Longer than I knew. He said he'd leave after he got the financial stuff handled. The postnup. She nodded. That hurt. You knew about it. Not everything. What did you know? That he wanted to protect the business. I leaned back. You sat beside me at Christmas, knowing my husband was planning to hand me an agreement so he could leave me. Tears slid down her face. I am sorry. I believe you are. She looked up. But being sorry now doesn't make you innocent then. She nodded. I know. Good. Then she took out her phone. There is something else. Messages. Lucas. Paige. Blue Ridge Brand Partners. Lucas asking her to create campaign descriptions for invoices. Paige asking why amounts were higher than actual ad spend. Lucas responding. Aaron handles the back end. Stop worrying. Paige. Are we billing for work we didn't do? Lucas. It's internal allocation. Everyone does it. I looked at her. You helped make those invoices. Some. Knowing they were wrong. I knew the numbers didn't match. Then why? She looked ashamed. He said it was accounting. I said nothing. Nye made me feel stupid for asking. There it was. Different woman. Same method. Make someone doubt their understanding. Then use their silence. Who is Aaron? His college friend, Aaron Blake. He owns Blue Ridge. Did you get any money? No. I believed her. That did not erase what she did. Send these to Nora. Why? Because if customers ask where their money went, someone needs to be able to answer. She nodded. Then, are you divorcing him? Yes. The answer surprised me with how easy it felt. Paige looked down. He's going to say I betrayed him. I probably will. I did. Al betrayed me. She swallowed. But you don't owe him protection from the truth. I stood. Those are different things. That evening I cried in my car. 10 minutes. Not because of Paige. Because I finally understood Lucas's pattern. I did not choose women because they were weak. He chose situations where he could define reality. With me, he defined me as dependent. With Paige, he defined her questions as ignorant. With Nora, he defined accounting concerns as overstepping. With Denise, he defined protecting him as motherhood. Everyone around him had been assigned a role. The only role Lucas never questioned was his own. By March, Reed Renovation still looked successful from the outside. The Oakwood project was moving. New photos went online. Lauren shared them. Lucas bought another company truck. Then the cracks became visible. The Oakwood project went over budget. Badly. Lucas had underbid custom millwork and underestimated electrical repairs in a 1920s house. Normally, that was the kind of situation I would help him think through. I would call someone, find a supplier, negotiate, introduce. This time when he complained, I listened. Millwork is 14 grand higher than expected. That sounds rough. I looked at me. That is all you have to say. What do you want me to say? I don't know. Exactly. For 5 years, Lucas had never noticed that his complaints were often requests. He had simply grown accustomed to solutions arriving afterward. The next week, Nora was fired. She came to my father's original Garner store. Dad, Nathan, me. Nora placed a cardboard box on the floor. He wanted me to move another deposit. How much? 62,000. For what? To finish Oakwood. Whose money? A couple in Wake Forest. Their addition had not started yet. Nathan swore. Dad said nothing. Nora continued. I told him no. And he said if I couldn't handle how a growing construction company operates, he needed someone more flexible. Flexible. A useful word for people who want ethics to bend. Did you keep copies? Yes. Good. Nora looked uncomfortable. I am not trying to ruin him. I know. If these homeowners start asking questions, you tell the truth. She nodded. That was our entire strategy. Not destroy Lucas. Not steal his company. Not sabotage jobs. Tell the truth when asked. Stop giving special treatment. Stop putting our family's reputation in front of his. And let Reed Renovation be exactly what Lucas insisted it was. His. Mother's Day was the moment our marriage finally broke in the open. Denise hosted lunch. Ham, mashed potatoes, green beans, rolls. Lauren and her husband were there. Lucas insisted we attend. If we skip, Mom will make it a thing. I almost laughed. Halfway through lunch, Denise put down her fork. Lucas tells me you're creating problems with Bennett. The table quieted. Lucas stared at his plate. What problems? The supplier terms. Those are Bennett's standard terms. They weren't before. No, because he's family. He still receives standard contractor pricing. You know what I mean? There was that phrase again. I looked at Lucas. I did not intervene. Denise continued. Marriage means you don't use your family against your husband because you're angry. I am not using anyone. Then fix it. No. Denise blinked. I had rarely said no to her that cleanly. Excuse me. Lucas can manage his business relationships. Her mouth tightened. I is under enormous pressure. So am I sometimes. Denise almost smiled. At what? The room stopped. Not metaphorically. Even Lauren froze. At what? 5 years of work. 4 stores. 3 warehouses. 90 employees across different entities. Payroll. Leases. Commercial accounts. Staffing. Properties. My father's transition. Every referral. Every phone call. Every late-night estimate. Every family dinner where I had swallowed disrespect to preserve harmony. At what? I looked at Lucas. For 1 second I gave him a chance. 1 sentence. That was all. My wife matters. Claire works hard. Mom, stop. Anything. Lucas put down his fork. She has her family to fall back on. She has. That was what he chose. Something inside me settled. I stood. Thank you for lunch, Denise. Don't be childish. I picked up my purse. I am leaving before I say something that would make it harder for you to pretend you don't know what you're doing. Lucas stood. Enough. I looked at him. You're right. Then I walked out. He came home 3 hours later. I was upstairs packing. Not everything. A week's worth. Lucas stopped in the doorway. What are you doing? I'm staying with Maya. Oh, come on. I folded a sweater. You humiliated me. I didn't say anything. I looked at him. Exactly. He rubbed his face. You cannot expect me to fight with my mother because you're suddenly insecure. I didn't ask you to fight. What did you want? One sentence. What sentence? My wife matters. Silence. He could not say it. Even as an example. He paced once across the room. I can't keep doing this every week. Neither can I. He looked at the suitcase. Then his voice changed. Cooler. More honest. Maybe this is for the best. I stopped folding. We've been pretending for a long time. I haven't. That is your version. No, that's the truth. He laughed. You always do that. Do what? Act like you're morally above everyone. I said nothing. He stepped closer. I have spent 5 years building a future. Then, you have spent 5 years standing beside it. I stared at him, standing beside it. Yes, I was angry now. Angry enough to stop editing himself. You don't know what it takes to build something from nothing. I almost laughed. You were never meant to run at my level, Claire. What's my level? That's not what I mean. Say it. His jaw tightened. You need stability. That's who you are. I zipped the suitcase. Lucas looked at me. If you're going to Maya's, don't pack for a week. I paused. What? His eyes met mine. Pack like you mean it. There are moments when a marriage ends with screaming. Ours ended with a zipper. I lifted the suitcase. Okay. Lucas looked almost disappointed. That is it. One thing. He waited. I set the suitcase upright. From this moment forward, if anybody does business with you, it will be because of you. His brow furrowed. What is that supposed to mean? It means I'm done helping. I gave a short, dismissive laugh. Claire, you have never been involved in my company. I looked at him. 5 years. Supplier calls. Clients. Warehouse. Estimates. Designers. Damage control. All of it. Then I said the only answer that mattered. Then you won't notice. I pulled the suitcase past him. I did not follow me downstairs. That night I slept at Maya's. The following week I moved into one of our empty rental townhouses near North Raleigh. 2 bedrooms, beige carpet, cheap blinds, small patio, no memories. I bought a mattress before I bought a bed frame. The third night I lay there listening to nothing. No garage door, no Lucas taking a phone call downstairs, no television, no snoring, no footsteps. I should have felt free. Instead I cried. Not because I wanted him back. I missed the man who brought tulips to my mother, the man who cut Dad's grass, the man at Jordan Lake who asked me to marry him. I was grieving someone who had either changed or had been partially imaginary. There is no funeral for that kind of loss. No one sends flowers when the person you loved is still alive, but the version you loved no longer exists. I cried until Penny climbed onto the mattress and put one paw on my stomach. Then I slept. The next morning I went to work. A month later, Nathan walked into my office. You're moving back. Where? The main office. No. Yes. Nathan. I threw a printed draft of our new website page onto my desk. Claire Bennett, co-owner and chief operating officer. I stared at it. No. You've run half this company for 11 years. I don't need a title on the website. That sentence is how we got here. I looked up. He leaned against my desk. You taught everybody else they could describe your role however they wanted. That isn't fair. No, he softened. But it's true. I hated that. Mostly because it was true. Dad agreed. You don't have to become loud, he said. Just visible. So I did. Nathan posted one photograph. The two of us outside the original Garner store. His caption. 32 years ago, Dad opened one store. Claire and I are lucky enough to carry it forward. Most of what works around here works because she makes it work. I cried, then called him. You made me sound competent, trying a new branding strategy. Lucas saw it. He called that night. I let it ring 4 times before answering. What is that post? Hello to you too. Your co-owner. Yes. How much? I leaned back on my townhouse patio. Why? Claire. How much? 40%. Silence. Not conversational silence. Recalculation. 40% of Bennett Building. Yes. And the properties. Some. How much? Why? We're married. I almost laughed. You didn't think that mattered when you wrote your exit timeline. The silence changed. What? I found it. Nothing. The photos too. Still nothing. Paige called me. I inhaled. Then, you went through my computer. There it was. The emergency exit used by people caught doing something worse. The insurance folder was beside yours. You had no right. Are you really going to make privacy your defense? His voice sharpened. Why didn't you tell me about Bennett? I went still. I did. No, you didn't. I told you I ran operations. You said you worked for your family. I do. You never told me you owned 40%. You never asked. That is insane. No, Lucas. I looked out at the townhouses. You decided my work wasn't important enough to understand. You let me believe. He stopped. I waited. Let you believe what? Nothing. That I was smaller. That Nathan was the real person. That money gave you leverage. That I needed you. He could not say any of it. I ended the call. The next morning, Denise sent me a message. Claire, whatever problems you and Lucas are having, Nathan's post was clearly intended to embarrass him. Family business should stay private. I hope when you calm down, you remember how much my son has done for you. I replied once. Nathan posted about our company. If that embarrasses Lucas, ask Lucas why. No response. Reed Renovation continued operating through the summer. That mattered. Lucas did not collapse because Claire Bennett walked away. How was good enough to survive. For a while. The Oakwood renovation finally finished. Late. Over budget. But finished. Lucas posted professional photographs. Lauren captioned one. They said he couldn't do it. I never learned who they were. Probably reality. Then another large job came in. A whole house renovation in Wake Forest. No connection to me. Lucas told Nathan through a mutual friend. See, Reed doesn't need Bennett. I heard about it. It stung. Not because I wanted him to fail. Because some small part of me wondered whether maybe he had been right. Maybe I had exaggerated my contribution. Maybe I really had just stood beside him. That doubt lasted 3 weeks. Then the Wake Forest homeowners called our store. Their framing package had not been paid for. Lucas had ordered it under terms he no longer had. The materials were sitting in our yard. Nathan came to my office. What do you want to do? Nothing. Nothing. He pays like everybody else. Nathan nodded. No special treatment. No, Lucas paid. Late. Then his cabinet vendor put him on hold. Then Rachel Monroe stopped sending projects. Then a second designer did. Not because I asked them. Because Lucas had become harder to work with. I was stressed. Short-tempered. Returning calls late. The support underneath his reputation was disappearing at exactly the moment his ego made him least capable of replacing it. That fall, a homeowner named Susan Myers called me. Retired middle school teacher. She and her husband had paid Reed Renovation $24,000 to remodel a bathroom. The project had not started. I don't know who else to ask, she said. Mrs. Reed, I met you at that awards dinner. Claire is fine. I keep calling. Her voice shook. They tell me we're next on the schedule. How long? 4 months. I thought about Nora. Do you still have your payment records? Yes. I'm going to give you someone's number. Nora. Then another customer called. Then another. Reed had been moving deposits, finishing old jobs with new money. As long as new work kept arriving, the wheel turned. When referrals slowed, the wheel started catching. I never called investigators. I never organized homeowners. I didn't have to. Truth has its own momentum when enough people stop protecting a lie. Lucas blamed me anyway. He showed up at my townhouse one evening. Yoon announced. I opened the door but did not invite him in. I had lost weight. Shirt wrinkled. Dark circles under his eyes. You did this. No. Rachel, Melissa, Bennett, everybody. They made their own decisions. You told them not to use me. When they asked whether I recommended Reed, I told them no. You knew exactly what that would do. Yes. His eyes flashed. At least you're admitting it. I knew lying would keep sending people to a company I no longer trusted. You don't understand construction. I almost smiled. You're still going with that. Cash flow gets complicated. Using Susan Myers' bathroom deposit to pay someone else's cabinets isn't complicated. His face changed. She called you. Yes. Of course she did. He laughed bitterly. Everybody calls Claire. That sentence contained more truth than he intended. I leaned against the doorframe. You spent years benefiting from that. I built Reed. I know. You think you're better than me because your dad handed you a company. That one almost landed. Then I remembered being 6 with price stickers. Mom running the register. Dad sleeping upstairs during inventory. Nathan unloading lumber in August heat. I looked at Lucas. My father handed me responsibility. He stepped closer. You always thought you were better. No. Yes. I spent 5 years making sure you never felt smaller beside me. He stopped. That was my mistake. His expression changed. I think that was the moment he understood I was truly gone. Paige left. I know. She talked to you. Yes. She used me too. I stared at him. She used you. She knew I was vulnerable. Lucas, you told her you were separated. He rubbed his forehead. It was complicated. No. I shook my head. It's finally simple. He looked past me into the townhouse. Cheap coffee table. Small sofa. Penny asleep beside the window. You own all that and you're living here. Yes. Why? It's peaceful. I did not understand that answer. That was fine. I left. 2 months later came the Triangle Home and Design Association fall dinner. That became the night. Lucas finally heard his own story told back to him by people who knew where it had actually begun. Bennett Building and Supply was a sponsor. Nathan was supposed to represent us. 3 days before the event, he walked into my office. You're going? No. Yes. Why? Emma's college visit. You planned that. Obviously. I threw a pen at him. He ducked. Great leadership. I hate you. No, you don't. Then, Claire people should know who they're doing business with. They do. Not all of them. I sighed. I don't want some dramatic reveal. Then don't have one. He shrugged. Eat rubber chicken. Talk to people. Go home. So I went. Dark green dress. Nothing designed to disappear. My badge read, Claire Bennett, co-owner and COO Bennett Building and Supply. People noticed. Not gasps. Not movie shock. Double glances. Small pauses. Oh, I didn't realize. Exactly. For years I had attended events as Lucas Reed's wife. That night, Lucas entered the room, and for the first time some people processed him as the husband of Claire Bennett. He arrived with Denise and Lauren. He saw me. Then my badge. His jaw tightened. I turned back to the contractor I was speaking with. I did not walk over. The old Claire would have. She would have crossed the room to reduce awkwardness. Made a joke. Protected everyone's comfort. I no longer auditioned for easiest woman in the room. Before dinner, I was speaking with Melissa Harper and Jeff Molina near the bar. Jeff owned several rental properties and had given Reed Renovation hundreds of thousands of dollars in work over the years. Lucas approached. Claire. Lucas. Jeff nodded. Hey man. Melissa was polite. Lucas looked at my badge again, then at Jeff. So I guess we're doing the big COO rollout. His tone was joking. Mostly. Jeff said. I didn't know she wasn't officially public before. Lucas laughed. Claire likes making things sound bigger than they are. The conversation cooled. I looked at him. What does that mean? He smiled. Come on, you know what I mean. There it was. Again. The sentence that had followed me for years. Except this time other people heard it. Lucas continued. Claire never really had anything to do with Reed. She's just angry because we're separating. I felt something inside me become still. Melissa stared at him. What? Lucas shrugged. You know how divorce gets. Melissa looked at me, then back at Lucas. Lucas, Claire is the reason Scott and I called you. His smile disappeared. Jeff said. Same here, actually. Lucas turned. What? Jeff nodded toward me. Claire recommended you after Bennett did work on one of my rentals. I closed those jobs. Sure. Jeff's voice remained calm. But I wouldn't have taken the meeting without her. Lucas looked at me, anger rising. You've been telling people this. No, Melissa answered for me. She never told me anything. Then another voice behind us. Martin Hayes from Bennett's commercial department. I had walked up at exactly the wrong moment for Lucas. Or the right one. Martin smiled at me. Then Lucas. I probably shouldn't step into a family conversation. Lucas said nothing. Martin did anyway. But if we're talking about Reed's start, Claire is also the person who asked me to keep your supplier line open after those first late invoices. Lucas's face changed. Completely. I looked at me. You did that. I held his eyes. 5 years. Finally. Yes. The ballroom noise continued around us. Glasses, music, people talking. But our little circle had gone silent. Lucas stared at me like a person looking at a room after someone switched on a different light. Melissa, Jeff, Martin. 3 relationships he had mentally filed under merit persistence networking. All had my fingerprints, Lucas said. Why wouldn't you tell me? I almost laughed. Because that question came 5 years too late. You wanted Reed to be yours. It is mine. I know. He straightened. Then stop acting like you built it. I looked at him. I didn't. That surprised him. Lucas Reed Renovation is your company. Pause. So from now on, its reputation should belong to you too. Nobody said anything. I did not raise my voice. Did not expose Paige. Did not mention customer deposits. Did not call him a liar. I simply gave him what he had always insisted he wanted. Full ownership of the story, including the ending. Then the program started. I walked away. Later that evening, the association president thanked sponsors. Then he said, I also want to recognize somebody many of us have worked with for years, without realizing how much she actually runs behind the scenes. I knew Nathan had done this. I planned his death. Claire Bennett has stepped into a more visible leadership role at Bennett Building and Supply. Applause. Warm. Real. Claire has actually been running much of Bennett's operational side for more than a decade. More applause. Claire, stand up. I did. Across the room, Lucas sat perfectly still. Denise began clapping because everyone around her was clapping. I did not look at her long. I did not need to. That night was not about embarrassing them. It was about no longer participating in my own erasure. After dinner, Denise found me near the hallway. I suppose you're enjoying this? No. She looked annoyed. I don't believe you. That's okay. You've turned everyone against Lucas. No. Then how do you explain what is happening? I looked back toward the ballroom. People trusted Lucas because people they trusted recommended him. And I was one of those people. She stared. When I stopped recommending him, he had to stand on what he built himself. Denise's mouth tightened. I added, Isn't that what all of you kept saying he wanted? She walked away. 3 weeks later, a local television station aired a consumer segment about unfinished Reed renovation projects. Susan Myers appeared. So did the Wake Forest couple. They showed photographs, an unfinished bathroom, exposed framing, boxes of tile sitting unopened. The report said several homeowners had filed complaints regarding deposits and incomplete work. I watched less than a minute, then turned it off. Denise called immediately afterward. Did you see this? Yes. They're making it look worse than it is. I said nothing. Lucas says if Bennett releases the materials, they release anything that's been paid for. Hun needs help. There it was. The old reflex arrived. Fast. Call Nathan. Call Martin. Give Lucas another month. Fix one thing. I had done it so long my body remembered before my mind did. Then I thought about Susan. No. A pause. No, I can't help him. You mean you won't? That too. Her voice hardened. You're still his wife. And something clicked. I asked, where was that loyalty when he was sleeping with Paige? Silence. Total silence. My stomach dropped. You knew. Claire, how long? He told me after Christmas that he had feelings for someone. The room seemed to tilt. And you still sat in my kitchen. Claire, you ate food I cooked. What? That Sunday. My voice shook now. You sat at my table eating pumpkin bread. You knew your son was seeing another woman, and you told me if I loved him I should sign the agreement. I was trying to protect my son. There are sentences that close doors forever. That was one. I understand. She sounded relieved. Then I continued. I understand exactly who you are. That's unfair. No, I sat down. What's unfair is calling me daughter for 5 years while helping your son make sure I left his life with as little as possible. Marriages end. Yes, they do. And mothers protect their children. Yes, but protecting your child does not require helping him hurt someone who trusted you. She started speaking. I stopped listening. I hope Lauren's husband never brings another woman into her marriage. Denise went silent. And if he does, I hope you remember what you told me. I hung up. That hurt more than Paige. Paige had been a stranger who chose a convenient lie. Denise had been family. I had taken her to medical appointments after shoulder surgery, hosted birthdays, dropped groceries at her house during the pandemic, called her mom twice by accident. Family betrayal is painful because someone was given access to soft parts of your life, then proved they had been standing there without respect. Mom's response was less philosophical. When I told her, she said, "She's not getting my pecan pie recipe." I laughed so hard I cried. That was how my family carried me. Not with dramatic speeches, soup, bad jokes, Nathan fixing my closet door, Dad sending photographs of Penny, Maya lying on my couch watching reality television while pretending not to notice when I cried. That was family. By January, Reed Renovation closed its showroom. Lucas sold 2 trucks. Carlos left for another contractor. Several homeowners were working through claims and repayment plans. State investigators were reviewing company records. I stayed out of it unless someone asked me a direct question. When asked, I told the truth. Nothing more. Our divorce itself was almost boring. That surprised people. The agreement Lucas had insisted on protected Reed Renovation. Fine. I did not want it. Its debt remained attached to him. Also fine. My ownership in Bennett had existed before the marriage. The property interests were documented and separate. There was no courtroom reveal, no judge gasping, no secret billionaire speech, just one enormous assumption collapsing under ordinary facts. Lucas had spent money protecting himself from the possibility that his supposedly dependent wife would take his company. He had never imagined his supposedly dependent wife did not need it. The house became the last emotional question. Lucas wanted it. I let him keep it. Nathan thought I was crazy. Dad understood. I don't want to win that house. That was all I said. Several months later, Lucas sold it anyway. The new owners painted the front door blue. Someone finally redid the ugly fireplace. I was glad. Some houses deserve a second chance too. The last important conversation Lucas and I ever had happened during mediation. Neutral conference room, bad coffee, fake plant, nothing dramatic enough for the amount of history inside it. During a break, the mediator stepped out. Lucas and I were alone. I looked tired. Not destroyed. Not pathetic. Just smaller somehow, because for the first time, he was not surrounded by the story he had built about himself. I looked at me. Did you ever love me? That question hurt. Yes. I looked down. Then why didn't you fight for us? I almost laughed. The end came after the fighting. You never told me what you needed. I asked you to see me. That's vague. No, I leaned forward. It was every time Lauren called you self-made and you stayed quiet. I looked away. Every time Denise called my work little and you let her. Every time I solved a problem and you forgot there had been hands behind the solution. Every time you accepted a client I introduced and later called it your network. Every time you said I was comfortable supporting. I didn't mean, I know. He stopped. For years, you know what I mean, had been his escape. This time I did know. You needed me small enough that your success felt completely yours. His jaw tightened. That isn't fair. Maybe not. I sat back. But it's true. Silence. Then Lucas said, I thought you needed me. There it was. The entire marriage in 6 words. Not. I thought you loved me. Not. I thought we needed each other. I thought you needed me. I had felt safe as long as he believed I had fewer choices. I looked at him. I did need you. He looked surprised. I needed my husband. My voice shook. I just never needed your money. Lucas closed his eyes. A long time. Then, I screwed this up. Yes. No cruelty. No victory. Just truth. I gave a humorless laugh. You don't make anything easy. That almost made me smile. I made things easy for you for 5 years. I looked at me. And I said the sentence that ended the story for me. I think that's part of how we got here. The mediator returned. We finished. Outside, warm rain was falling. I stood under the awning and called Dad. Done. Done. You okay? I thought about it. Yes. Then, no. He waited. I will be. That sounds more accurate. Dinner. Your mother made enough food to feed people who don't exist. 6:30. 6:30. I drove to my parents' house. Nathan. Emily. Their daughters. Roast chicken. Mashed potatoes. Peach cobbler. Nobody toasted my divorce. Nobody asked what Lucas had said. My niece told us about a boy at school who tried to jump a trash can and landed inside it. Nathan argued with Dad about baseball. Mom asked whether I wanted potatoes 3 separate times. I looked around the same scratched oak table where I had done homework as a teenager, and something finally made sense. I had imagined dignity arriving through some enormous moment where everyone who had underestimated me would be forced to recognize my value. But dignity was quieter than that. It was being at a table where nobody needed me to prove anything before they made room for me. That was family. The people who knew my name before I became useful. Almost a year later, Dad officially stepped down as chairman of Bennett Building and Supply. He had claimed he was retiring for 6 years. This time, Mom had booked 3 weeks away, so we finally believed him. At the staff meeting, Dad stood in front of employees who had known me since childhood. Some had watched me put 4 price stickers on one paintbrush. He talked about Nathan, then me. My daughter has spent most of her life making things work without needing anyone to see her doing it. I looked down. Dad continued, "That can be a virtue." Then, "But sometimes people need to see who's doing the work." I looked up. He smiled. "Claire, stop hiding." People applauded. I cried. Nathan later claimed the reason his eyes were wet was sawdust. We were inside an office. There was no sawdust. By spring, I had become president of Bennett Building and Supply. Not because I suddenly wanted attention, because I finally understood something. Refusing recognition can sometimes teach the wrong people that your contribution belongs to whoever is loudest. My life did not become glamorous. I answered emails at 7, argued with Nathan about inventory. Mom called during meetings. Dad continued showing up at stores despite being retired. Penny became more popular than management. I bought a small house outside Raleigh. 2 bedrooms, screened porch, large oak tree, blue front door. The first night there, I ate pizza on the floor because my dining table had not arrived. Maya sat across from me. "You know you could buy something much bigger." "I know." "Pool." "No." "Kitchen the size of this whole room." "No." She narrowed her eyes. "What do you want?" I listened. "Crickets outside." Penny asleep by the porch. No tension waiting behind a bedroom door. "Peace." Maya raised her pizza slice. "To boring." I touched mine against it. "To boring." That fall, Bennett held its annual employee picnic at the original Garner store. Children running through the parking lot. Employees bringing spouses. Dad arrived at 10 and immediately started telling a new warehouse employee how to stack lumber despite being retired. Mom brought enough food for 3 times the number of people attending. Nathan gave a short speech, then without warning me handed me the microphone. I considered firing him. Instead, I looked out at everyone. Drivers, managers, warehouse staff, salespeople, bookkeepers, people who had worked beside my father, people who had only joined that year. For 1 second, I remembered Lucas's award speech, the applause, my missing name. Then the memory passed. My dad taught Nathan and me something growing up. Dad looked down because he knew what was coming. He always said people remember whether your word was expensive. Several longtime employees smiled. I continued. "I think there's another part of that lesson." I looked around. "People remember whether you remembered them." The parking lot went quiet. Nothing good in my life was built alone. I looked at Mom, Dad, Nathan, our employees, and I don't ever want to forget whose hands were there. That was all. I handed Nathan the microphone. People applauded. Not because I had defeated Lucas. Most of them did not know the entire story. They were applauding because they were part of what I meant. That felt better than every revenge speech I had once imagined. Later, after everyone left, Dad and I sat outside the store. Paper napkins in the parking lot, sun dropping behind the buildings. Mom inside collecting plastic containers. Dad looked toward the old Bennett sign. "You okay?" I laughed. "You've asked me that about 10,000 times. And I thought about it. Yeah, really, really." Dad nodded. Then after a moment, "You know, I never liked him." I turned. "You waited 6 years to tell me that." I was trying to be supportive. I stared at him. Then we both started laughing. Mom shouted from inside, "What are you laughing at?" Dad yelled, "Nothing," she answered. "Then stop being suspicious." We laughed harder. And sitting there, I finally understood the difference between revenge and dignity. Revenge would have been making Lucas feel as small as he made me feel. Dignity was no longer needing him to feel anything. I did not destroy the life Lucas built. I stopped holding it together for him. That is different. I stopped calling suppliers, stopped sending clients, stopped explaining his behavior, stopped protecting his reputation, stopped shrinking my work so his looked larger. And when all of that disappeared, Lucas finally had exactly what he had spent years demanding: a company completely his own, a reputation completely his own, consequences completely his own. I used to say he wanted to be self-made. In the end, I let him find out what that actually meant. The hardest lesson I learned was not about cheating, or money, or mothers-in-law. It was about respect. You do not need applause from your spouse. You do not need them to thank you every time you wash a dish, solve a problem, or introduce a client. But respect means they remember your hands were there. It means when someone erases you at the dinner table, they do not help. It means when success arrives, they do not rewrite the years before it. And if someone can only feel powerful while you remain small, that is not partnership. That is insecurity asking you to pay rent. For years, I thought being a good wife meant not needing recognition. I was wrong. Maybe you do not need applause, but you do need respect. I also learned something about family. Family is not the person who calls you daughter while helping their son betray you. Family is not the title. Family is the table where you can arrive broken and nobody asks you to perform strength before they feed you. My parents gave me a business, but the greater legacy they gave me was this: you never have to disappear to belong here. That is the legacy I want to leave too. Not stores, not warehouses, not money. The certainty that the people beside me know they do not have to make themselves smaller so I can feel large. And if I could speak to the version of myself, sitting at that kitchen table on the Sunday before Thanksgiving, pen in hand, Lucas watching Denise eating my pumpkin bread, I would not tell her to scream. I would not tell her to tear up the agreement. I would not even tell her to expose him. I would tell her one thing: stop proving your love by disappearing. Because sometimes the person standing quietly in the background is the reason the lights are still on. And sometimes the most powerful revenge is not destroying the person who underestimated you. It is simply stepping away, then letting them notice. So if you were sitting at that kitchen table with me and heard your husband say, "I built this without you," what would you have done? Would you have confronted him immediately? Or would you have signed your name, stepped aside, and let him find out exactly how much of his self-made life had never been his alone?